Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Sword and Fairy Together Forever. The long-running Chinese RPG has finally made it back to the West. Is it worth making some friends so you can be together forever? Sword and Fairy Together Forever is available on PC and PlayStation, although on PC it is called Sword and Fairy 7. On PC it is also $30, while on PlayStation it is $40, and the game will take you around 23 to 25 hours to get through. So what exactly is Sword and Fairy Together Forever? Well, it's a very story-heavy action RPG set deep in Chinese mythology. You play as two main protagonists whose names I will now butcher. Yu Qingshu, a priestess in the Mingshu sect, and Zhu Wu, a deity who has lost a divine sword and is now stuck in the human world to undo those issues that arose from, losing a sword. Bonded together by fate, these two pair up with a handful of allies as they traverse through a world to try and prevent demons from basically doing what demons do, messing up the human realm. The game's general loop is it tosses you in a large-ish area, usually with a village surrounded by hostile lands, and giving you the opportunity to explore, fight enemies, and do side quests. Combat is in real time and is action-oriented, usually consisting of mashing your square and triangle buttons for light and heavy attacks, though you can do special moves by holding R2 and pressing a face button, which will cost some MP. You also have a dodge, which you can do last minute for a minor buff, though I found the game easy enough that it wasn't necessary as the combat is generally very simple and flashy. In these areas, you can also engage in side quests, most of which are fetch quests or go kill X number of monsters. Killing monsters grants new gear as well as components, which can be upgraded at the blacksmith. This is all fairly standard stuff. As the world expands, you'll be given new small areas to explore, complete with new monsters and side quests to engage in, and thankfully the game does give you fast travel early, though to be honest, the whole experience is fairly linear. The real bulk of this game is its cutscenes, with slots of the game feeling like you watch a cutscene only to be tossed back into a zone, to fight a couple of things, and then you go to the next cutscene. Some of these put Kojima to shame in their length, with this game being very story-centric. The story is entirely voiced in Chinese, and the VO is quite good, though the translation can come off a little wonky at times. There's also a card minigame, which feels like Paper, Scissors, Rock, which I only played once and won once. I should lastly mention this game is very pretty, with some great liminal spaces around its design and a lot of rich inspiration from Chinese mythology. It is certainly a looker on the PS5, where it also has lightning-fast load times. So overall, Sword and Fairy Together Forever is a fairly standard action RPG, with its unique elements being its heavy emphasis on story and background in Chinese mythology. So what do I like about Sword and Fairy Together Forever? Well, the game looks incredible, with some fantastic art direction, great character designs, and breathtaking environments. Additionally, the story is thankfully very engaging, and while it has a slow start, once it ramps up, I really liked the characters and their interaction, especially the god now junior priest and his relationship with the main character. The story definitely goes in some really interesting places. And lastly, the RPG elements are overall solid, with the combat being fast-paced and engaging, with the bosses in particular being the highlight. When it comes to the bad, I encountered more than a few bugs, with enemies not loading in correctly, massive input delays when trying to do specials, cutscene bugs, frame rate issues, and more. Additionally, the game is more cutscene than RPG, which for some might end up being tedious as there isn't a ton of RPG stuff to do. This is hurt further by the translation kind of being all over the place, and while I was never confused, it generally all felt kind of off, which led to some weird and awkward scenes. And lastly, the side quests all basically suck. They are almost all fetch or kill quests, which are very dull and never really felt worth doing. As you know, rate games here on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, or don't bother. I think Sword and Fairy is a maybe consider, but is a bit of a hidden gem. While Sword and Fairy Together Forever is ultimately pretty bog standard when it comes to an action RPG, I found myself fairly entranced by both its great visuals and surprisingly compelling story. While it does take a while for the story to really kick off and go in directions I didn't expect, those who enjoy these kinds of slower paced RPGs with only a light emphasis on their combat will feel right at home here. But if you aren't into JRPG style games with more story than gameplay, you can probably give Sword and Fairy a pass. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Sword and Fairy Together Forever, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments, but regardless, go out there and give it a look.